Back at my school in Scotland, there was a guy named Willie. If anyone yelled, "Willie, give us a wiggle," he'd pull his arms in like a T-Rex and sway his hips side to side. That memory is still vivid to this day. We all called him Willie Wiggle. There was a kid who wore a cape every single day, claiming he was a superhero. Honestly, I was the odd one out. In primary school, I'd make up wild lies like Jay Cartwright. Once, I told everyone my uncle owned Xbox and that I had a golden Xbox 720 that wouldn't release until next year. There were countless other absurd lies. People probably thought I was a jerk, but thankfully, I've managed to channel that creativity into writing fictional stories as an adult. Someone climbed into the first floor chemistry lab through a window mid-lesson, struck a dramatic pose by the door, declared, "Join me in the corridors of time," and walked out. For context, someone tossed a banana peel across the classroom, and it landed next to the weird kid. The teacher, for some baffling reason, assumed they threw it. How could they have done it? The peel flew across the room. Anyway, the kid lost it after being blamed, opened a window, and attempted to jump out. It was on the third floor. Thankfully, they changed their mind, but that incident became the most infamous story of our year. Everyone knew about it. This guy could mimic the teacher's voices perfectly. Sometimes he'd even joke around with the staff using the director's voice. He was absolutely hilarious. One guy brought a waffle maker to school. During PE, he hid in the locker room until it was locked, then made waffles for himself while the rest of the class was busy. When the doors were unlocked, the whole place smelled amazing from the waffles. This fool named Penny climbed over a zoo barrier to give a cougar a peppermint. The cougar scratched her, and the zoo decided to euthanize it to avoid legal issues. Honestly, what a ridiculous thing to do. The weird kid once came to class with a potato, insisting it was his emotional support vegetable. There was this quiet guy who, out of nowhere, announced, "I'm going to fake a seizure." Sitting at the front, he slammed his desk and chair, flailed on the floor, and made wild noises for about 2 minutes. Then he stood up and said, "Thought I was having a seizure." The teacher was so stunned, they just resumed teaching. It was the most uncharacteristic thing I've ever seen. This guy was the total opposite of a troublemaker. But in a chaotic class like ours, crazy stuff like that happened regularly. I was the weird kid. I didn't do anything particularly strange, but looking back, I was dealing with a rough home life, which definitely affected my behavior at school. Someone caught 20 cicadas from the field and released them into a random classroom. During a class, someone brought in firecrackers and set them off in the room. There was this guy in class who got bullied throughout high school. Only me and 3 others treated him like a normal person. He stood out because of his unique personality, but he hated the bullying. Even though the principal was aware, nothing was done. Instead of snapping, the guy started an anonymous online blog documenting the bullying school-wide. When the principal called him into the office, he invited a local journalist to join the meeting. The paper ran an article about the situation, forcing the principal to take action to protect the school. The bullying stopped, and the kid got to embrace his quirks again, like picking his nose and eating it without judgment. Cool guy. Last I heard, he's working at Apple now. He was bizarre to the extreme, but he smeared dog feces on his bully's combination lock before school, earning the bully the nickname "Sit Hands" for the next 2.5 years. A scrawny kid with glasses who ate worms and liked to choke himself just to scare others tried out for the football team and made it as the kicker. One guy captured a live wolf spider from behind a cabinet in class. He turned on a hot glue gun and shoved it between his fingers, covering the spider in his hand with glue. He ended up with first and second-degree burns. This same person launched bottle rockets from his rear, resulting in more second-degree burns, this time on his backside. In chemistry class, he heated a penny and branded himself with it. Only now am I realizing this kid had a thing for burning himself. He constructed a small rocket during science class and launched it at lunchtime, throwing the entire cafeteria into pandemonium. At my school, there was a quiet kid named Alex who always carried a large notebook and spent breaks sitting alone, sketching or writing. One day, the art teacher asked him to share his work. It turned out he had written an entire fantasy novel, complete with its own world, mythology, and languages. Everyone in our class was amazed. From that moment on, he was no longer thought of as weird, but recognized as a creative genius. I have no idea what became of him. During a baseball game, he stood on either first or second base, I don't recall which, and told me, "Watch this, I'm going to do something cool." Then he dropped his pants and defecated on the base. I was stunned and no one else noticed. I didn't know how to respond, completely at a loss for words. The batter hit the ball, and the kid who pooped ran to the next base. The next runner slid into the base with poop on it and yelled, "Who the hell crapped on the base?" I was one of the odd kids, frequently bullied from 2nd through 6th grade for being shy and reserved. One day at recess, I finally snapped, grabbed one of my tormentors by the shoulders, and slammed his head against a concrete wall. Afterward, I was teased for having anger issues until I transferred to a high school where none of them attended. He brought an entire rotisserie chicken to class and ate it like an apple during the lecture. There was a girl in high school who hissed at people and carried a stuffed pumpkin. She once told me she enjoyed bullying me because I was too kind to retaliate. It felt like a new low, being bullied by the weird kid. He put a slice of bologna in the teacher's CD player and hit play. Nothing happened, but it was hilarious when the teacher tried to insert a CD later and was utterly confused. He asked another kid to place his hand on the table, then stabbed the kid's hand with a pencil. We must have been about 7 years old. He struck the school bully on the head with a mini baseball bat, splitting it open. The bully was absolutely terrible, but seeing that still made me flinch. The weird kid was charged with aggravated battery and expelled. Eventually, he became a successful diesel mechanic. Looking back, he wasn't strange at all. He just didn't conform to what our school and suburb considered normal. He was constantly teased for carrying a Thomas the Tank Engine rolling backpack, so he set it on fire in the bathroom. He defecated on the teacher's desk while the teacher stepped outside to take an important phone call. He used to dress in a suit and wear an earpiece, pretending to be part of the Secret Service. He was harmless enough. She turned out to be someone completely different than she claimed. She acted distant and unapproachable, but it was later revealed that she was actually a 31-year-old woman with mental health issues. A rancher's kid showed up at high school driving a front loader filled with bagels. He dumped the hundreds of bagels into a massive pile in the central courtyard. After parking the loader, he returned to the pile and started throwing bagels at people. This led to a legendary bagel fight.